All right. No! That was my first attempt at recording this, and Sam is making me leave it in. So, hi guys, this is Kirsten, and this is my first video in my series, Road to a 225 bench. Right now, my max is about 195, so this will be a longer term series. Take a couple blocks to get up to that 225 mark. So this first session is my long pause day. I'm in prep for a strongman competition right now, so I'm pulling back from comp style benching a little bit to keep some variety in my training, because I just came out of a powerlifting prep where I was comp benching 3 times a week. So right now I'm doing a long pause comp style bench on one day, and then doing a pin press another day, and then there's Ode. And then I'm doing a Yukon bar bench, so all of my bench variations are focused towards the lower part of my bench, so my pec strength, because that's where I am the weakest. So what you saw earlier is my favorite bench warm-up. I do usually like to start with face pulls, get my shoulders and upper back warmed up, and then some pulls to the collarbone level, same thing, and then I do some rows just to get my back all warmed up to facilitate that tightness that I like to feel in the bottom of my bench press. And then after that, because I'm benching with an emphasis on my pec strength 3 times a week, my pecs are always tight, so I like to do those band over and backs between sets before I start benching, and I also do those on my squat day. And I found that even though I'm not as big and strong as Sam and Max are, I do still struggle with having tight pecs impacting my back tightness on my squat. So I also do those banded over and backs on my squat days as well, which ends up being every day I train, because I squat or bench every day I train. And those are super helpful for opening up your pecs, so then you can get your back tighter on your squat. And on the topic of helpful warm-ups, I also like to stretch my hip flexors on my bench day as well. This just helps to have less back pain when I'm arching in the bench press. I like to do a couch stretch, and then sometimes I'll also warm up my lower back and glutes by doing some back extensions, and that combo is really helpful to alleviate back pain, especially in hypertrophy when you're training your quads pretty hard multiple times a week. That can often lead to some tightness in the front of your hip and your hip flexor, so when you go to bench and you lay down on the bench, the extension can sometimes come from the low back instead of the hip joint, which can cause some discomfort in the low back. So by stretching out your hips, you're less likely to extend at the low back and less likely to experience like cramping or back pain. So as I mentioned earlier, this is my long pause day. I don't know if you guys have ever done long pause bench, but it's pretty brutal. I would recommend, if any of you guys have like long pause bench day, or if you're in competition prep, having someone you trust call your pauses is a game changer. It makes it way harder. So I had Sam in the garage with me, and he was counting and calling my pauses for me, which made this way harder than it was in past sets where I was calling my own pauses, because obviously, you know, your perception of time under the weight is going to be different. So if you don't have anybody to call your pauses for you, I would just count one higher. As you can see, we're on my 4th set. I got a set of 5 for my first sets, and then 4 sets of 6 afterwards, which is right around the volume we were looking for on a long pause bench. Usually with this percentage, we'd be looking for like 8 to 12 reps in a hypertrophy phase, but just due to the amount of time that these sets take, it's pretty normal for the same percentage to equate to less reps. In terms of technique stuff, today I was focusing on really squeezing the bar hard so that I'm not bleeding power at the wrist. I also find that long pause days are a really good opportunity to practice leg drive timing. I often find that people will start firing their leg drive right when the bar makes contact with their chest, which makes sense for a touch and go bench, but if you're trying to do a comp style pause bench or a pause bench of any kind, you need to wait until you're ready to initiate the press and then start driving with the legs. So those were my main focuses with regard to a long pause bench. Every day I bench, I like to focus on drawing my sternum up towards the bar, meeting it halfway, and also being on my traps. Aside from all of that technical stuff, I've also been working on my mindset this block. When I started lifting, I was dating Sam already, so I started with good programming from the start, but I still hit some pretty hard plateaus on all 3 of my lifts. I think that just goes to show that you can't out-program a bad mindset or a not caring that much or not trying really hard. So I've been watching, like Trend Twins, like those types of YouTube videos of people who really go in the gym and get after it. And I think that's been also super helpful on all of my lifts. As the Boog says, it's a mindset. And I came from figure skating. I figure skated all throughout my childhood. So I came in with a pretty good understanding of technique, because obviously figure skating is pretty technical, but not super intense, at least the way that I grew up figure skating. So I came in with this base knowledge of, having good proprioceptive awareness and understanding of how to work on my technique. But I didn't understand the mindset of like intensity, like how some people come in with, like Sam talks about sports background. Some people come in just knowing how to try really hard, and that benefits them a lot. And people usually have to learn technique as they go, but they have a base level of intensity, whereas I kind of had the opposite situation where I had the technique, but I had to learn how to bring intensity into my workouts. And that actually brought me newbie gains, like a few years into lifting when I had plateaued. It's really easy to think, oh, my genetics are bad, or oh, I've like reached my potential. But sometimes there's newbie gains that are really easy to find. Like changing my mindset broke through all of my plateaus and with big numbers in a small amount of time. So as you've seen on the screen, I also was doing chin-ups this day. We use these more as like a primary motion, because they're more of a compound lift, because for strongman I need to not just have a strong enough upper back, but I need to have an overtly strong upper back for things like sandbags and stones. So I find that I do chin-ups, neutral grip pull-ups, and regular pull-ups throughout the week, and I find that all of those are really helpful. They built a lot of size actually, even though the volume wasn't super high, but I feel like my back got a lot bigger when I started doing those. And under Sam's methodology, I always do some tricep press downs after my pressing days. And then I've also been adding some curls for the girls at the end of the workout. Hopefully I can start looking big in a t-shirt instead of just in tanks. So thank you guys for watching my first video. Don't tell me what you think if you didn't like it, but if you did like it, go ahead and leave a comment. Hopefully these will be more exciting as the weights get heavier, but yeah, it'll be interesting to see where we get at the end of this block.